Welcome to How to Avoid a Mr. H, the ping pong dynamic. So, I call the ping pong dynamic this bantering, this bickering that I have found in a lot of my relationships that now really does leave me ashamed. I I was raised in a family that by all means humor and bullying were extremely blurred. I don't I think we loved each other. I don't know if we liked each other. And I say that because or maybe we liked each other, but we didn't love each other. I just felt like there was glue. We were like a puzzle, and some of the pieces were forcibly glued to fit in spots that they shouldn't have. And instead of looking for those pieces, instead of trying to figure out the puzzle, we just smashed them in. And there, especially because machismo can be so, and my mother was very smart, so the men were envious of that. She was very funny and go getter, and the men in my family were lazy and kind of wanted to be kings without earning it, like my dad. And I, wanted to be kings without earning it or duping women into making them royalty, like my dad. And one of the things that I found, and it's in a prior episode, I don't know which one, but it was a Halloween episode where I was talking about like one of my friends kind of intervened because I was having this back and forth with a now ex, and this kind of moment of realizing that you are not only with a disgusting person, but in turn they have made you disgusting. Like you roll around in garbage, you smell like trash. And it was this moment of nice to see somebody back me up, hard to see that I've abandoned me. And I have always, I think I've said it in, especially in the prior few episodes, I have yet to experience a fully intimate, healthy relationship, particularly because I've never been in one where there wasn't this moment where my partner or my friend or my collaborator or my lover didn't bite my effing head off and just with no warning or impetus rail on me. And that was my childhood. Just these sporadic moments of you are the worst kid in the world. Um, or even if not saying that specifically, certainly saying it in definition and making me feel it. And I say that you don't say it because my father only said he didn't love me once, but his whole life was on acting like I was detestable, like a fart in an elevator he was trapped in. And my family kind of got away with circling, which is like what I call bullying was funny. Saying defining the name without saying the name. Like I'm not going to call you a bitch, but I'm going to describe you according to every characteristic that is a bitch. And that is kind of the ping pong dynamic of just, tossing this, smacking this little baby ball back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and not calling it a legitimate sport. Something like that. But just boop, 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 boop. Um, and it's funny because I think one of my pitfalls in terms of living so toxically and so many toxic dynamics has been my resilience and being raised in a family that believed you are resilient. Your resilience is enacted as the men or the people in your life, but particularly the men fail you. Like you need to be strong for how they fail you. You need to be really strong for how they disappoint you. You need to be really strong for how they don't show up, even though they said they would. And I became really good at doing that. I became really good at like handling people's mental breakdowns or misconceptions of me or their tirades. And I became praised for being the sweetest person to never be bitter. towards a batch of people that were bitter but defined themselves as sweet. And to see that transfer into relationships where I had a choice is devastating because I swore to me I would choose better. I swore to me that in knowing how wrong those dynamics were, I automatically knew what was right and I would go for it. And yet, I fell into the ping pong dynamics. I fell into kind of, it was funny because I was watching The Ultimatum, the latest season, and I told my friend, I have never seen a group of people that wanted to be married to someone that disliked them. And it was kind of that energy of like, why are we together? Like, why? Yes, because you make the excuse. Of course, I stayed with my abusive father. He was my father, right? Like that's a dynamic. That's even in the Bible. Honor thy father, right? Not honor thy kid. I But then I found like this overwhelming loyalty to titles that could obviously be played by different actors, like boyfriend, like boss, like friend. Like this was chosen family, and yet I was choosing the same type of family, the one I didn't want, the one I was born into. And it made me feel, I think what it made me realize is that kind of, yeah, you hang out with trash, you become it. I bickered back, and it's one of the most difficult things in people who are in abusive dynamics. I saw a recent video of this woman at an airport having like absolutely eviscerating her husband who was in front of her, like crying and having a mental breakdown. And people were like, "Women are crazy." Like the men were like, "Oh, women are crazy. Women are insane. What's wrong with her? Leave her." And the women were like, "You don't know if this is she's being abused because." And I think this goes for in general abuse victims. They push and push and push you until you go off the ledge. And that's when they look cool. And that's when they make sure to look collected. Right. And then that immediately becomes their prime example of you do things too. Like for my dad, an entire life of being a failure of a father, even to his other children, suddenly relied on the fact that I called him a sperm donor once after my theater show at 14. Like that was why he had to continue to fail. And I think with my dad, holding him, he was a man that never was held accountable, even for his crimes. I think with my father, that element of ping ponging, I feel like I ping ponged with him to make him hold accountability because it's not just bitterness that's underneath the surface of bickering. It's the bitterness of being in a relationship where, for all these misconceptions and misperceptions and supposed misinterpretations of each other, nobody will even hold accountability that they've misinterpreted. Because that's another thing, too. It's like, oh, you don't get me, you don't understand me. But nobody will say that they're a misunderstanding person. Both feel misinterpreted, but nobody's willing to admit they misinterpret. You know what I mean? And I think that's the bitterness of I love you, but I don't like you. I don't know. We've reached a point in this relationship where I don't know if I'm staying because I think this is salvageable or I'm unsaved. And there's something that is inherently gross about that, even for the person that is abused, that for the person that is the victim. You're just, I think FK Twigs did a remarkable interview about the abuse she suffered via Shia LaBeouf. And she says something that was so interesting in terms of how unique and true it was. And it was that it was so unspecial. He was so boring. Like he wasn't special. He wasn't dynamic. He wasn't that great for how horrendous he treated her and made her feel. And it's something that I realize in a lot of my relationships. And I'm sure that they felt the same way about me because they wouldn't have dried me up and taken so much energy about from me if they didn't feel in some ways that I was boring and that I was unworthy of my own light. And it's hard not to, I think the word disgusting is so apropos because you realize how disgusting they were by seeing how disgusting you were in not having boundaries, in not walking away, in not even walking into the relationship. And I don't want to, I think the ping pong dynamic makes the relationship feel like a game when it should just feel like you got finally get to rest from all the games. Like I want a relationship that makes life can feel like a game, society can feel like a game. The minute you leave your home, you could feel like Mario Kart. You're just trying to survive to get to the grocery store and get back home and survive your own cooking. you know, I I have seen, and I'm very thankful for some of the choices I've made recently in terms of who to surround myself with and who to let go. I'm very grateful to see relationships that don't have that because I was always taught, of course, no relationship is perfect, no person is perfect. Maybe they do it privately, but we did it privately and publicly. Publicly, we did it, and privately was worse. It's nice to see people, even if it's just pretend, because you never know what's happening at home, like each other to not only publicly respect each other, but demand you respect their partners, their family, their friends, them as well. That's really refreshing because I was made to believe that didn't exist. But now I know it does, and I've got a goal. I've got a good goal now. So check out daddyrecovery.com. Check out theandrewreviewsitall.com. Check out Hadleen on all music platforms.